All right. Will Sandbox ever replace Gmod? Short answer, no. Long answer, this video.
Garry's Mod. Before it became the go-to source game for most new PC players,
G-Bombs!
it had some humble
An
beginnings.
emotion, man!
In 2004, it started as a simple mod for Half-Life 2, just a way to mess around with the game's new physics engine.
Nice.
But Garry Newman, the guy in the title, saw its potential and kept expanding on the idea. Slowly but surely, it evolved into the game we all know and love.
GM
And when I say slowly
construct
but surely,
home.
I mean it. It took about 7 years for Gmod to get the workshop and its subsequent success. But after that, Garry stopped innovating, not in a bad way, just that there wasn't much left to add beyond small quality of life updates. So in 2013, he decided to try something new. With the success of Gmod, he founded Facepunch Studios and decided to jump onto the survival game bandwagon. At the time, games like DayZ and Minecraft were blowing up. So Facepunch created Rust. It started as Rust Legacy, which if you played it back in the day, you'll remember was completely different from the Rust we have today, even having zombies and zombie bears. My point is, just like Gmod, it started small and changed quite a lot over the years. Fast forward a bit, Rust gets tons of updates, sells millions of copies, and eventually, Garry decides it's time to move on again.
Isn't Rust like the absolute most toxic game ever to exist? Or does that crown still go to League of Legends? I'd probably say, yeah, it's probably still League of Legends.
In 2017, Facepunch starts working on S&box, a game basically everyone called Garry's Mod 2, especially since it was built on the new and improved Source 2 engine. Unlike Gmod, which used Lua for modding, S&box also switched to C#, basically modernizing to today's.
That is a very stretchy arcade. I don't remember my arcade Brunstad being this stretchy.
Standards. Seeing the announcement.
Wait, is that actually arcade Brunstad?
Also switched.
Or is it just C#? No, okay, it isn't. It's I have no idea what that's supposed to be.
Basically modernizing to today's standards.
Is that the glasses girl from Lucky Star? I think it is.
The announcement of this supposed Gmod 2, I along with many others were pretty fucking excited.
Yeah.
After 8 years, what's really happened to it?
Yeah,
Honestly,
what's happening?
I kind of forgot about it for a while because it just wasn't finished. And considering it took 7 years for Gmod to somewhat become what it is today,
G-Bombs!
Now's a good time to look
G-Bombs and emotion, man.
Is it really the Gmod 2 that so many people were saying it was? The short answer is of course no. I already knew that, and you probably did too. But I think it's much more complicated than that. You see, when Garry's Mod first started, it had a pretty easy framework to work around. Half-Life 2. Then later on, Episode 1 and 2, CS Source, CSGO, Team Fortress 2, Left 4 Dead, you get the point.
Wait, did he just call CSGO CSS CSGO? Golly gee willikers, I sure hope he got fired for that blunder.
S&box, on the other hand, isn't built on Source 1. It runs on the elusive Source 2 engine, which did not have many games at the time Garry started working on it. Back in 2017, the only game running Source 2 was Dota 2.
And it wasn't even actual Dota 2. I think it was like the theater mode or something.
It's Half-Life Alyx released, you'd think they could use its assets. But nope, for Garry's Mod, Valve actually took about a 30% cut of sales because it was using Half-Life 2. Similar to that, Valve would be taking a 30% cut, if not more, for the use of the Half-Life Alyx models. So Garry decided to start from scratch, with no real standardized game to base S&box on. And right off the bat, this is, in my opinion, the biggest difference between S&box and Gmod. Simple things like the ability to use ladders, swim, open doors, break windows, none of that was there for Garry to use this time. He basically had to create a whole engine himself, so I think its much longer development time is very valid. They've changed this game a ton over the past couple of years, but I'd say it's maybe 70% baked. It's still getting updated 70% and not small ones either. Now let me try to explain this game if you don't already know. I didn't know anything about this game until this video. Like the fact that there are microtransactions. Yeah.
That is gonna be this title though? Yeah, it is a big fat no.
Garry definitely knows what he's doing now after Rust, and hey, I can't really blame him. Anyways, if you paid attention to this game slightly at launch, you will remember those ugly-ass sausage people. And
I hate them!
Remember, no Half-Life 2 models to use this time, so these ugly-ass sausage people had to do it for the time being. They eventually added customization, which you can see is pretty cool, even having normal humans you can play as now. Now, onto the actual game. That's better, I guess. Mod, the default mode was, of course, S&box. We all spent plenty of time here. In fact, the first 500 hours I had on Gmod was probably me messing around and S&box using the toy box, which if you didn't know was basically the
Classic.
Gmod workshop before that existed. But Gmod of course had
Classic.
other game modes you could play as well, like TTT, Prop Hunt, and all the others. And S&box things
Whoa,
take a
look at him
different
go!
approach. They don't even call them game modes, they're just called games. As the name
Games.
implies, they're meant to be much more than just modes. Instead, they're supposed to be their own standalone experience, even having their own settings to change, servers to join, mechanics,
Ooh.
UI, movement, basically everything. Gmod did of course have game modes like
Crazy.
that, but they still always felt like Gmod. In S&box, you can play Doom in its entirety, or maybe
Of
hop on
course.
some Cat Harvest.
No!
This of course didn't stop you.
No! No!
S&box, you can play Doom in its entirety, or maybe hop on
I love that. I should probably play BioShock someday, but I should play BioShock someday. Just
some Cat
saving this
Harvester.
for
This of course didn't stop users
posterity.
from creating the original Garry's Mod S&box mode, which makes me hopeful. Playing it for the first time felt like the good old days back on Gmod. Sadly, there aren't any add-ons you can get, so you're stuck with these default weapons, which used to be straight up guns from Rust. But using this mode made me really appreciate the Source 2 engine, which remember is really the whole point of this game. I could now spawn a shit ton of boxes without any lag really. I'd love to see you try that in Gmod. The Vampiro model did lag the shit out of my game eventually though. The only user created models for this game all sit in a giant cloud essentially.
The funny cat. Look at that cat. Cat. I don't know, my God. Am I stupid? The funny cat. Look at that cat.
You don't have to download them from the workshop, so it's pretty similar to
That's
the
pretty
toolbox
cool.
back in the day.
Wait.
Sadly, it's only models
Wait.
from the workshop, so it's
Oh, little. She's the Freddy Fazbear.
pretty similar to the toy box back in the day. Sadly, it's only models though. No weapons or sweeps you can use. Kind of sad to know that Garry himself didn't really prioritize a S&box mode for sand.
Wait, is that one of the Azure Lane girls? Is that literally one of the Azure Lane girls? Sorry, I'm seeing recognizable anime girls. I see recognizable anime girls.
Didn't really prioritize a S&box mode for S&box, instead having to be created by someone else. In fact, there are quite a lot of game modes already released for this game. Quite unfinished, mind you, but they're still there. A few of them happen to be made by Facepunch themselves though, like Sausage Survivors, a Vampire Survivors clone, which is pretty freaking cool. Walker, which is exactly what it sounds like. The only thing you can do is walk around. Jumper, a cool parkour mode, which is a lot harder than it looks. Yeah, I meant to.
Oh, it's fucking Jump King 3D. Oh, that looks like horrible.
Pixels, which is essentially r/place. Mazing, a pretty cool maze game with some interesting mechanics. Nicked, which is a Counter-Strike Cops vs. Robbers mode. And finally, Opium, which is a story game which made me realize just how unimportant it really is to have that Half-Life 2 framework here. I would have never seen anything like this done on Gmod. Entirely new assets everywhere, whole different style, voice acting, and even sounds. Although there were some Rust sound effects, which is kind of funny imagining these taking the place of the Half-Life 2 ones. Sadly, this here has to be a ton of work, and it's only just a demo. A lot of work for just one person.
Oh my God, it's just like Cry of Fear.
Two assets already there.
Or Condemned.
Really cool game modes made by Garry himself, which, as you could see, were completely incomparable to Gmod. Thankfully, though, there are some staple Gmod game modes that remain, not made by Garry, of course. The most impressive of which has to be TTT. I wouldn't have expected it to be anything else. This one has custom models, animations, sounds, all remaining faithful to the classic TTT, to a T. I imagine this wasn't easy to make either. So what incentive does this game bring that Gmod doesn't? I mean, why are the thousands upon thousands of talented workshop creators on Garry's Mod suddenly gonna move over to this unfamiliar engine? Money. Just kidding.
Money.
I know that ain't the only reason, but S&box is doing something much different than Gmod ever did. They have
It's being a platform. It's not just Garry's Mod. It's not just a silly little mod with in Half-Life 2 where you can make the G-Man hump Alex over a fire barrel, an exploding barrel. No, this is a whole ass engine where you can make Source 2 games.
something called the Play Fund. These games that go up
Ooh,
on Sandbox will
Play
be able to make
Fund.
real money, similar to how Roblox games and even
Oh my
Fortnite
god,
maps
it's
can make the creators
Roblox.
tons of money. Basically, the
Just the
developers
one.
of the games in Sandbox will be given a chunk of the money from the overall profit of the game. The more people that play your game, the more money you'll get. This will definitely be
Oh
enough
god,
to
it's
incentivize
becoming
people to
Roblox.
dedicate a lot more time on their games in Sandbox. So why aren't there more games on Sandbox? Why does it feel so unfinished? Well,
Because it
that's
is
because
unfinished.
It isn't finished. It technically hasn't
Of
even been
course.
fully released yet, but basically anyone can get their hands on it. Some games that have been
Oh?
made have just been completely broken by updates, and I also assume Source 2 has a
Oh.
much steeper learning curve than Source 1, especially with Sandbox being C#, and the
I
game
saw
also
Gura.
isn't popular enough, mainly
Gura
because
jump
Gmod is
scare.
still alive. For Sandbox to thrive, Gmod will have to die. I don't actually believe that, it just sounded kind of cool to say. It does
Yeah, and also Gmod can be run on a toaster. You can run Gmod on a smart fridge. I don't know if you actually can, but it sounds like you can.
does make me wonder though, how many people from Gmod really will move over to Sandbox once their favorite game modes are finally recreated? There has to be a pretty large number of people who won't move over specifically for performance reasons. We saw a lot of that with the switch from CSGO to CS2. Some people won't switch just because of the way the new engine looks, some not even switching because the nostalgic HL2 assets are gone. I just don't know.
That's
The
a
uncertainty
huge.
I have
For me, that's the big one. It's like, why even bother? If you're not gonna have Half-Life assets, why bother?
is definitely one a lot of others have, which may be the reason not many people have fully committed to creating for this game yet. It will definitely get there one day though. What really made me realize this was just walking around GM Construct in Source 2. It's like walking through somewhere that is
Whoa.
familiar, yet has changed so much. I don't really know how to describe it. The lighting in Source 2 looks amazing, but it does look a lot less saturated than Source 1, which I think is just something to get used to maybe. The sounds in Source 2 are also really good.
Wow.
I was
So
in awe
this
of
is the
map for a
power of
while,
Source
just
2.
walking around and experiencing this map on a much newer engine, much newer. It makes me wonder how other Gmod maps would play on this engine. I always love those tornado maps on Gmod. Now imagine that on Source 2. Garry even made
Now,
it.
oh my god, volumetrics, okay, I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent, but I don't really care for graphics or graphical fidelity. I usually just leave it on whatever texture it lands on and just go, or whatever texture filtering and clap. Yeah, I just leave it at that. And then it's like disable anti-aliasing because I'm a freak that likes jaggies. I leave VSync on because VSync actually is important and I don't want to experience screen tearing. No bloom, no post-processing effects, all that good stuff. However, I am slowly but surely becoming more. I am slowly and surely embracing volumetrics, like volumetric fog and whatnot, because that is just something I that looks just really nice. Something that just looks very nice, volumetric fog. Especially like the whole source the Counter-Strike 2 thing with volumetric fog actually being a big gameplay thing. But yeah, that is a bit strange, but I gotta admit, volumetrics look really fucking cool. And big enjoyer of it.
A Construct 2 for Sandbox, which it has been a while since I've just walked around a game taking pictures. This
Oh,
Source
look
2
at that
engine
Z
is just
fighting.
so good looking. Just look how good these textures look. It is very weird though to be in a game with no swimming, ladders, doors, windows, almost a bit uncanny feeling. The textures and assets for this map I'm pretty sure are public for developers to use thankfully, but it makes me wonder if this is a problem for the longevity of the game. A huge reason I think that's helped Gmod stay alive for so long is how nostalgic all those HL2 assets are.
Elliot
and
goes
other
to
games as well.
school.
I mean, can you really imagine playing Gmod without them? Even outside the game itself, it's
Get that
inspired countless
motherfucker.
things like animations. Even I had to go at those back in the day, and even Skip
Nice.
They can't use
Skibbity!
Half-Life Alyx because licensing issues. Dota 2 they can't use because it's Dota 2. Deadlock maybe, probably still licensing issues, and they obviously aren't using Counter-Strike 2 models, probably because of licensing issues. So will Sandbox ever have a standard?
It all boils down to licensing issues.
Standardized game for it. The only thing I can say is, I hope so. S&box does have a public list of assets, but it is definitely small compared to Half-Life 2. But with all the talks of HLX lately, which if you didn't know is probably Half-Life 3, maybe they'll use the models and shit from that. Could you imagine S&box using Half-Life 3 as its base? A man can only dream. But who knows? Maybe one day it'll happen. It would take Valve giving them rights to actually use it, and they'd also probably get a pretty huge cut from S&box, which would make it harder to pay developers with that play fund. It also makes me wonder for the future of Source 2 itself. Will they allow the new Half-Life the same modding capability that Half-Life 2 had? I would love to see a resurgence of old Source games coming to Source 2. S&box itself really just makes me wonder.
Yeah, that's something I really want to, especially when he covered his Dead Source games videos. Like, imagine Pirates, Knights, and Vikings on Source 2. Now, that'd be awesome.
About Source 2. I never really had a good chance to mess around in it before. It really does make me realize the potential that this engine actually has, but I think the Source 1 engine still has some life in it. It may even be eternal. But for now, S&box sits in a pretty awkward spot. There's still plenty of people playing it for it being somewhat closed, and it's pretty cool because when you launch a game mode, some of them will put you in open servers. I had some random Russian dude join and tell me to put some clothes on. Overall, the real question here though is, will S&box ever replace Gmod? I made sure to ask my peers first.
No.
Will S&box ever replace Gmod?
No.
Will S&box replace Gmod?
No.
Will S&box ever replace Gmod?
Kitty. No. Hell no.
It's obvious most people don't think S&box will ever replace Gmod, and I have to agree. At least not for any time soon.
It's not going to
Gmod
replace
has already been around for 20 years.
It's not going to replace it, but it's more of a side grade. If you want to check it out, sure, but ultimately it won't replace it.
Jesus. So the player base is very dedicated as well. I personally can't see this game ever getting replaced in my eyes. It would be sad letting go of these source games and all the commands I'm familiar with, but the future is now, I suppose. S&box is definitely meant to fix most of the things holding Gmod back from what it could be, but they're also just inherently different games. With S&box not even having a default mode or add-ons you can enable yourself, it seems like it's really going away from the approach Gmod had, where you could really do a lot of things yourself. I do miss the intricacies of the Source 1 console. In S&box, you can't even launch a map from the console using the map command. It's not even there. S&box also no longer has that source jank we've all come to know and love, but it does still have its own type
source
of jank.
spaghetti.
My take is, just like Gmod and Rust, they all took their time to be good, and I think S&box is the same. I really did have a fun time on this game, and hopefully none of it came off too harsh. Garry really has his own vision for what he wants this game to be, and we all love Garry.
Wait, if Garry,
I can respect
we
it.
love you, Garry. If you see the video, Garry, we love you.
Yeah, we love you,
S&box is
Garry.
meant to be an evolution of Garry's
I love you,
mod,
Garry.
not a second one. I'm curious to see what
Not a
you
big
guys
fan
think,
of
though. Will this
Rust,
game
but
ever
whatever.
live up to Gmod? I'd still recommend giving it a try for sure, and I know someday it'll be even better than what it already is. I'll also put a link in the description for where you can actually get access for this game. It's pretty easy. But for now, that's where I'm gonna wrap up my opinion for this game. It's now time for
Maybe I should
update and shit or something.
If you didn't know, I got a little kitten named Alex recently, and have decided to give some updates on her at the end of my videos. She's gotten a lot bigger. She's about 4 months old now, I'm pretty sure, and it looks like she's gonna be a pretty big cat. She's also a love bug, and will cuddle on your face while you're sleeping.
Aw,
Anyways,
that's
thank you to
cute.
those who've made it this far in the video. Please consider checking out my socials.
But yeah, maybe I should learn source C++ and or C+ or whatever S&box uses, and indeed make that mod of fights. Maybe, perhaps.